how about moving and resizing your objects? Well, let's talk about moving first. There's a couple of neat ways that you can move your objects around. If you haven't discovered it already, when you have an object selected on your screen, and again, I'm on the pick tool here. I haven't changed my tool from the previous exercise. When you have an object selected, or a group of objects, by the way, if I shift-click the scarlet rectangle here, of course what I can do is I can just click and drag these guys around inside my document, something like this, right? So you can always click and drag to move your objects around. All right, wonderful stuff. Now, what else can you do? Well, what I really want to show you here is something called nudging, and nudging is something that I use all the time. Sometimes people refer to this as micro-positioning. In other words, I can take this object and I can push it around on the page in tiny little increments. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So go ahead and select one of your objects. It doesn't really matter what kind of an object you select, and give this a try. This is nice and easy. You know your arrow keys on your keyboard, your north, south, east, west arrow keys? Try tapping on those guys, and you'll actually nudge your object or micro position your object around on screen, something like this, right? So I'm tapping my right arrow key here, and it's pushing this yellow circle to the right on the page. Pretty cool, right? Awesome stuff. Now, you might be sitting there going, well, whoopee-doo, when am I going to use this? Well, if you're using Corel to lay out perhaps a newsletter or maybe a web page or something like that, you want to make sure everything's nice and tight and lined up and spaced out properly. Micro-positioning or nudging is really the best method to do that. Now, on the issue of nudging, micro-positioning, whatever you want to call it, I want to show you something else here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to click away into some white space on my page just to deselect everything. And I want to draw your attention to the properties bar across the top of your screen. And of course, we talked about this way back when, that when you don't have anything selected on screen, you get your sort of your default properties, and we have our page size and we have the orientation and all that good stuff, right? But there's an option way down towards the right called nudge. This guy right here, or nudge offset, really, I should say. Now, that's the distance that each nudge is going to be inside Corel, if that makes any sense at all. Let me show you what I'm talking about. The default here is 0.01 for the nudge offset. Well, what I'll do here, I'll give you kind of a blatantly obvious example of this. I'm going to increase my nudge offset to 1/2 inch, something like this. Enter to lock that in. I'll select an object, back down on my page, and now try tapping your arrow keys. And now my object is being moved in 1/2 inch increments all the way around my page, something like this, right? So, you know, if you find that the default nudge offset is too low, just deselect everything on your page just by clicking in some white space, head up to the properties bar across the top of the screen, nudge offset, and go and adjust it, right? Now, I think what I'll do here is I'll reset mine back to the default, but again, of course, you can mess with yours if you want. Okay, so there's moving, nudging, no big deal, right? How about resizing your objects? Well, this is really going to be short and sweet, because I think we've already seen a couple of these options here. What I'll do here is I'll select one of my objects once again on screen here, and no doubt you've already eyeballed that we have these little grab handles that appear in all 4 corners and on all 4 sides of any object or any selection group of objects that you might have inside Corel, right? So with an object selected, all you need to do is grab these handles and start dragging, either up and down, in and out, whatever the case may be, right? So you can pull from the sides, you can pull from the corners, whatever it is that you want to do, right? Something like this, or maybe I'll scale this guy way down, whatever you want, right? And as I say, that works on individual shapes, or when I hold down Shift and make a group selection, something like this, and now I can scale that group or stretch that group out or do whatever I want, right? So easy stuff, very straightforward. All right, very quickly, I'm going to show you one more thing here. I'm going to grab another shape here, and we talked about these settings already. This is really more of a reminder, but when you have a shape selected on your page, once again, head up to your properties up at the top, and you can certainly numerically resize your object using the values that are available to us up on the properties bar. So maybe I'll do, say, something like this, and I'll just hit enter to lock that in, and of course, my shape resizes there. Or I could scale the fella if I wanted to as well. So anyway, there you go. Resizing, nudging, micro-positioning, all that good stuff.
To change your